If you are in this session, that means that you lost some points on your constructed response 1, your fiction constructed response 1, in the category of supporting an answer. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to share a file in File Transfer that is basically a copy of the slides that I'm using in here. It's a little grainy, but it's still readable, I think, and you can still use it to help you as you attempt to correct the issues with supporting an answer that you have in your CR1. Okay, let's take a look at the question first. The question is, what is the theme of this passage? Give 2 examples from the text to support your answer. So from that, you should think to yourself, okay, theme, that's one of those big literature words that we learn. Theme is the big idea, it's the main message or the lesson learned from the text. And I know I need to provide 2 examples to support my answer. Remember that you need to use the RACES method. It's a very good method for answering these questions. And if you lost points for supporting an answer, that probably means, if that's all you missed, that probably means that you restated the question fine, that you gave a fine answer. The problem is with your C or your E. So when you cited evidence, there was some issue, or when you explained how your textual support relates to your answer, or how your cited evidence supports your answer, there could be a problem there as well. You can see there are some sentence starters here that you're more than welcome to use. And actually, I'm going to share out another file as well, which is the support file for writing this constructed response. So this is the pre-writing page that you can use for the fiction constructed response 1. So you're more than welcome to open that. It has some support items in it for you as well. If you look below here, there are some possible themes listed, which if you only lost points for supporting an answer, you probably had a theme that worked chosen. So you had that restate an answer correct. But here are 3 possible themes that I'm going to show you today how we might use different support if we were claiming each of these different themes. Okay, so in other words, if I'm saying the theme of the passage is overcoming obstacles. For example, when faced with an obstacle, thinking of those who love you can help you overcome. Okay, if that's the theme that I choose, I'm going to choose different support than I would choose if this were my chosen theme. So if I said the theme of this passage is hard work pays off, Nadia's rigorous practicing allowed her to perform well in spite of her stage fright. If I'm arguing that is the theme, I'm going to choose very different support for that argument. The same thing for this third possible theme. The memory of one's pet can help relax and soothe a person's nerves during stressful times. If that's what I'm claiming is the theme, I need to use textual support that relates to or supports that argument. So the problem with your answer had to do with the evidence you cited. Maybe it was not specific enough. Maybe it was not relevant. In other words, it didn't support your answer. Or you might have had some trouble with explaining your evidence. Maybe you forgot to explain it at all. Maybe you forgot to explain how your evidence supports your answer, or maybe you just didn't do a good job of that. Okay, those are the reasons that you could have lost these points. So let's take a look here. If we take this first theme, overcoming an obstacle, and I'm just going to think out loud a little bit. We know Nadia was performing for her school's talent show. That was the passage. And that she had some stage fright. That was her major obstacle that she had to overcome. And so she overcame that by thinking of those who love her. So if I wanted to prove that that was the theme, I might use these highlighted ideas, okay? First, I'm going to want to explain what her obstacle was, and I'm going to use textual support to explain that. So I could quote, when Nadia went to perform, she could feel those butterflies fluttering in her belly, and she felt her palms start to sweat. Now, I could provide that evidence, put quotation marks around it. And then I could use one of these sentence starters to explain it. This shows, or this means, that Nadia felt nervous. Butterflies in the stomach and sweaty palms are signs of being nervous. So you can see I've cited evidence that she had an obstacle to overcome, and I've explained that evidence. Okay, now I need to go on and show how she overcomes it by thinking of those who love her. So I'm going to go back to the text again. I might use this quote. Nadia spotted her mother in the first row. Seeing her mother made her think of home and lucky. In that moment, her nerves settled as she forgot about the audience. Okay, so I might put direct quotes around that section, and then I can go back and explain. Okay, so if I go, now I have my evidence. I'm going to say, for example, in the text, it stated, Nadia saw her mother in the first row. Seeing her mother made her think of home and lucky. In that moment, her nerves settled as she forgot about the audience. End quote. When I go back to my sentence starter, so you can see we can use an example from the story is, or the narrator says, as sentence starters to begin citing our evidence. Now I'm going to explain the evidence. This evidence supports my answer because it shows how thinking of home and Nadia's dog, Lucky, helped to settle her nerves and therefore helped her overcome her obstacle. Okay? And then you can, of course, summarize to conclude. So those are some examples of support that we might use if this were our chosen theme. Let's take a look at this chosen theme. Hard work pays off. So if I said the theme in this passage is hard work pays off. Okay? I'm going to have to go to the text and gather specific and relevant evidence, cite from the text specific and relevant evidence, and then tell why the quote supports my answer. Why does that evidence support my answer? So in this case, I've highlighted in pink. Okay? So we can see she had been practicing for a month. She had to perform in the school talent show and was relentless in her practicing. That means she practiced continuously. She knew well enough the hours of practice had resulted in her playing the song well. So we could use all three of these, or we could use just one of these to show that she's working very hard. So that's the first thing we need to show. She's working very hard. So we could quote, let's say we quote this last one. For example, in the text it says, Nadia knew well enough that hours of practice had resulted in her playing the song so well. This shows, or this, I would say maybe to explain this one, I might say, this shows us how hard Nadia has worked to prepare for this performance. So I've cited evidence, and now I'm explaining it. So the hours of practice that she's put in, that shows us that she's working hard toward her goal. Now I need to show that her hard work pays off. So I'm going to look for evidence of that in the text. At the end here, when the audience erupted in applause, we get that reward for that hard work. That is the payoff. She was successful in her performance, and it paid off, all of that hard work. So we might quote this. I know that Nadia worked hard and it paid off because at the end of the story, the audience erupts in applause. Okay, going back to our explanation, we might say, this shows us, or this means that her hard work paid off. The applause means her hard work paid off. So you're citing the support, but you can't assume that everyone's making the same connections that you're making. So you have to also explain that support. Let's take a look at another possible theme that you could have used, and that is the memory of one's pet can help relax and soothe a person's nerves during stressful times. Okay, so if I said the theme of the passage is that, I'm going to use different support to prove my answer. I have to use support that's specific and relevant to what I've claimed, and then explain how that evidence supports my answer. So let's take a look. I know that Nadia has a close relationship with her dog because she calls him her biggest fan. Her dog, Lucky, her biggest fan, lay near her feet. So I might quote that, and I might say I can tell that Nadia has a very close relationship with her dog, Lucky. So I've used a quote, I've cited evidence, and I've explained that evidence. So if I said, in the text it says, her dog Lucky, her biggest fan, lay near her feet. This shows, or this means, that she has a close relationship with her pet. Okay, so that's what I'm proving first. Secondly, I want to show how that helped her. Okay, so I need to show that she was nervous, first of all, and then I need to show that she calmed down. So we might use this quote to show that she was nervous. Then came the moment that both excited and terrified her. She was up next. Or we might show this as her nervous moment. Nadia had already performed her routine backstage, and it seemed as if it hadn't worked this time. We could also use the butterflies section. So any of this part could prove her nervousness. So choose a quote that proves that Nadia's feeling nervous, and then we need to go back and explain that quote. This means that Nadia was nervous before her performance. So for this theme, we need to prove that Nadia was nervous and that her dog Lucky soothed her nerves, okay, in order to prove this theme. So now we've proven that Nadia was nervous. We need to go back and prove that her dog soothed her. So here we see this quote, possibly, could use this quote. This time when she looked down at the piano keys, she imagined she was at home with Lucky beside her. We could also use this. Now that it was just her and Lucky, she struck the first note and the other notes fell in line with ease. So we need to show that she thought of Lucky during her nervousness. So we might say something like, Nadia thought of Lucky when she felt nervous. We see this in the text in this quote. And you could provide a quote. Okay? When she thought of Lucky, this evidence supports my answer because it shows how, when Nadia thought of Lucky, her nervousness went away and she calmed down. Okay, so as you can see, for each possible theme, you would use different support. Sometimes it overlaps, but mostly you would use different support because it needs to be relevant and specific to your particular argument, to the theme that you've chosen. And then, of course, you need to sum up and conclude your answer. So hopefully that helped you think about how to better support an answer for your CR1. Thanks, everyone. Bye.